So today, I didn't do our announcements, but I'll just try to remember to do that when we're done. Today I want to talk about, just last night I did this program we had on Zoom. It's, if you're interested, it's Ascension into the Christ. So it's Ascension into Christ consciousness. And in that, we just cover such deep material. It's profound. Once a month we get together, twice a month. But last night I promised I would talk about something, and it was about identity, I guess. So we've been talking about this concept of who I am and how important that concept is. So, there's DVDs where I talk about it, and there's free videos all over YouTube about this concept. So please consider, deepening your breadth of understanding of what I've shared on it. However, there is a difference between fantasy, imagination, and knowing. The very clear distinction. All of us are always, whether we know it or not, are always navigating those three. The more you navigate into fantasy versus knowingness, the more messed up you are. It's pure and simple. Because the less I know the knowingness, the less I know who I am, the more I fantasize hopes and wishes. Does that make sense? And that's it. So I go into these fantasies. Even masks you wear and masks you allow other people to put on you are fantasies. I want you to be my one and only. That's a fantasy I'm giving you. Because the knowingness is we're already one. What do I need you to be? But that doesn't work well on Hallmark cards. Hi, I know I'm with you, but we're all one, so it doesn't matter. Like you can't sell cards like that. It's got to be, oh my God, I can't live if living is without you. And nurturing this weird codependent fantasy. Because it's a fantasy. Why? Because Michael's a bummer? No. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy because it can't fulfill what it's promising to fulfill. I feel wonderful while you're in my life. No, I need to feel wonderful anyway. And if I only feel wonderful while you're in my life, you now have a burden you're carrying. And you're eventually going to become exhausted. You're eventually going to realize, I tried and I can't. You wanted me to be whatever it is. And I can't. I'm me. You wanted me to be someone else. You wanted me to make up for something someone else did or didn't do. Why do I want assignments? Wow. That's just another job. Give me bullet points and checklists. I put them on the fridge. Say hello. Say I love you. Get flowers. And it's all just becoming this. Yeah, anyway. Get rolling, sometimes. Anyway. And it's all fantasy. Now, fantasy is of the lower three chakras. Knowingness, the upper three chakras. Imagination is the one sitting between those two sets, triads, okay? So fantasy is the fantasy I'm talking about, by the way. I'm not referring to beautiful fantasy like fantasy world, like fairies. My team told me someone sent a complaint to Unity about me. And it was, I'm never going to watch any Michael's things anymore because he believes in fairies and things like that. And if he's spiritual, if he's truly spiritual, he should know that those things don't exist. And then she went on to tell us how much more she hated us. So the thing is, what's really kind of peculiar is why, if I do believe in fairies, which I do, because they're real. Angels are real. All the kingdoms are real. Light beings are real. The universe, there's all these dimensions. Multiple dimensionality is real. Sacred geometry is real. Everything has its place. But this person says, no. I want him to be like other popular spiritual leaders out there, and she named a few, who only talk narrow corridor of one topic. And it's like, wow, how sick and sad. But why are you so upset? There was like this anger in and there's this whole, but I'm just coming from a centered place, but it's not. You're angry, you're upset. You're upset. You might want to track that. You might want to look at why fairies trigger you. Wow, Did you have some like funky experience as a 3-year-old? Did some fairy out in the garden, do like some taunting kind of a thing? And now you're like, if I ever meet a spiritual teacher that believes in fairies, I'm going to give him my piece of my mind. Wow. And so I got to be that for them. Okay. I was hoping I could be there on some other level, but how strange. But so I'm not talking about that fantasy, and that fantasy is not a fantasy, not the fantasy world. That's not a fantasy. It's real. We'll leave that be. I'm talking about fantasies of that other side, the fantasies that are like Freud talking about how human beings, when they go to sleep at night, he said, dreams are nothing but made up of things you didn't get. They're wishes, and it's partly true. So negative fantasies are like the wishfulness. Daydreams are a form of fantasy for most people, because most daydreaming isn't plugging into God and envisioning and co-creating with God. Most fantasies are, wow, and I wish I were living here, and oh, if only, longing. Fantasy, lower 3 chakra fantasy, is addiction-oriented because it affirms, I'm missing something, and if I could just fantasize, I'll have it. Even though it's not real, I won't have it really. Just the fantasy of it makes me feel a little less messed up. So it's not providing what it seems to or pretends to provide. It's a fantasy. And it's funny to use that word because we associate fairies and beautiful things, and yet there's this negative psychological connotation to it. I'm not referring to that. I'm also not referring to spiritual fantasies, meaning spiritual visioning. That's different. That's different. So this is more like, and this is important because when you sit down and even just a slight daydream, oh, gosh, the ideal partner. Oh, if only I could live there. And oh my God, if only, oh, I wish I had my favorite. All of that daydreaming. Understand that it's a negative experience because it's not happening. It's not real. You're wasting energy. So if I really want to be a stickler and a master right now, I would just tell you straight up, that is wasting your energy. I'll try to say it nicer, but it's true. That's a waste of energy. Putting it another way, all of my consciousness is an active creative power, right? My consciousness is an active power. When I take that consciousness and put it, and I call it leak it out, when I put it out like, oh, the perfect life, oh, the dream job, what I'm doing is leaking power. Now, if I'm doing it with God as I'm seeing this happening, visioning, it's not leaking power. It's actually plugging something in that has value. Because first of all, I'm doing this with God. Second of all, I'm doing it with a valuable, we're going there. The other is, and we'll probably never get there, but wouldn't it be nice if, never going anywhere, never landing. Is that making sense? That's negative fantasy. That's why it's addiction oriented. Because a drink you think does something for you and it doesn't do it. You think a drug does something and it doesn't really do it. Daydreaming that, oh, had I only, if I had only married them instead of them. See, the fantasies, but you didn't. That's what I mean by it's wasted energy. I know you think it would be nice, but you didn't. Now, I'm not saying you should shame yourself. Stop right now. Stop wishing I had a better life. No. See it. Mourn the loss. Own it. Talk to a counselor or sponsor. Come on. It's okay. I feel just sad that didn't happen. Feel sadness. Then come back to life, Lazarus. Come out of the tomb. Step up and say, now, can I do something about that? Can I make a change? Now you're co-creating. You're not wishing and fantasizing. Is that clear? Beautiful. Just step up. Some of us, you think everybody would go, I'm ready for that. I want the real thing. No, some of us go, no, I don't really. I just want to sit around and bemoan what I don't have. Don't give me ideas on how I could do this right. So if you catch yourself in that vibe, then go ahead and stay miserable or whatever. But if you really want to see a difference, if you really, think about this. Why are you even fantasizing? Do you realize that under even the darkest, because fantasies can be about work, it could be about sex, it could be about all kinds of things. And all of them are a waste of energy because it's not what is. It's what you wish would be. Why are you wishing it would be? Because you don't feel that you are. It's an identity crisis, and you're compensating with addictions of different form, including the addiction of wasted thinking. Not just wasted drinking, wasted thinking. And you're just putting energy into something, but that means the creator God, goddess here, is like little energy there, but going nowhere. If you have, say, a gut that's leaking, you take nutrients and it's just leaking. It's not actually serving you. It's not going into your bloodstream and serving your glands and your organs. You have an illness. So you take more of the nutrients. You see, if I put fuel in my car and I go, oh, it's back on E again 3 minutes later, I'll just put more. And again, you're going to go broke fueling up your car. You never notice that there's a leak in the fuel line. Make sense again? So it's the same thing. Why would you want a leaky fuel line? You don't. It's a waste of energy, and money is another form of energy. So you're filling up again, and the time it takes to go fuel up. You wouldn't want that. Then why do you want it in your life? Stop leaking creative energy by wishing you had a different life. Just choose it. Now, there are some valuable aspects to the fantasy, and one of them is this. Underneath even your darkest, seediest, weirdest fantasies is a longing for God. That's what you really want. The problem is, it's all about my relationship with God, but some of us have fantasies that seem very overtly self-destructive, but it's still about God. Well, why would self-destructiveness be about God? Because your darkest self-destructive fantasies are basically saying, here's how upset I am about not feeling God. Nobody loves me, so I'm fantasizing some dark version of love. Or being tortured. You know? People using me, I'm fantasizing that, some weird relationship, passion or whatever. And it's seedy as heck. But you know what? Underneath it, what I'm really saying is this is how much I hate myself. That I'm fantasizing people abusing me. It's kind of stimulating, though. Stimulating to who? The ego self that wants you to feel that very thing, that you are unlovable. See, so you're feeding some weird thing that isn't real. And the great news about this is, this entire world is technically a fantasy. Because it tells us you're not one with God. And I said fantasies are related to energy put into things that aren't. So it's really kind of cool. You and I are not separate from God in the first place. So really all we need to do is return to the knowingness instead of the false fantasies. So, I am as God created me. I remain as God created me, which is in its image. Oh, what a relief, because I just had the weirdest dream. I thought I was separate, and then I was like walking around going, God, I wish, and wasting fantasy energy. Or mad at myself for feeling separate and feeding some like self-destructive, self-abusive fantasy. So there's a second category, imagining. Not fantasizing, imagining. It's a little bit different, and it's distinctly different though. It sounds kind of like it's just slightly varied, but it's not. There's a very distinct line between the two. Imagining it's not knowing yet. But imagining is the heart chakra. God, I want you to start guiding my imaginings, because imagining means to image in, to hold an image of. That's imagining. So some of us, again, we confuse this. Oh, I was just imagining that. That's fantasizing. So you don't want to confuse the two. It's why we do these talks sometimes, is to get clarification. So I see now what fantasizing is, and it's not my interest, you could say. What about imagining? Where does that land? Well, it's not yet knowing, but at least it's not far out here. I'm separate and I need an addictive kind of a mind addiction. Imaging is something I can more easily say, if I can do this with God, what I'm doing is imaging in. I'm imagining, I'm imaging in the presence of God. I'm anchoring, I'm grounding, I'm calling down the presence, and I'm imaging it so. But when I imagine, I can hold an image. When I say imagine, comes from imaging in. I can hold an image that comes from God, but I can also still hold images that come from my ego. So the heart chakra isn't immune to problems. The heart is halfway between this and that. Now you hear in the Bible, choose whom you will serve. Your heart is being told, your soul is being told, hey, make a decision. Are you wanting to image in divine thoughts or lack fear thoughts? Choose whom you will serve. Wake up, make a decision, take responsibility. That's what that means. It's really beautiful if you think about it. So what do I want to spend time imaging in? And I'm not saying that we're supposed to walk around with no fantasy, no imaging, just, oh, look at me, I'm blissed out constantly. You're on earth, you got bills to pay, you got stuff to do. It's just that I want to be a co-creator with God. And God supports the idea of your imaging. My heart and soul is allowed to be participating and encouraged to be participating in my life choices. It's just that I want to learn to make the choices that speak to me from love instead of fear, from oneness instead of lack. So I set this goal and say, okay, this is where I'm going. I want to image in, and you take responsibility for what you're imaging in. And watch for the, the tendency, the addictive stuff that I try to image in something really positive, but into my mind comes that stuff again of fantasy, of not being. Had I only done this, I wish I would have. Regrets. You don't want to put heart and soul energy into negative fantasies because you think that this world is powerful, the human you, your physical, emotional, intellectual trinity down here, you think that's powerful. Get to know the power of your soul, because it's actually 99% of your power compared to the other. This is mostly where your power comes from on earth, choice. And your soul, when it's choosing to use powerful imaging for fantasies, be careful, man. Soon as you see it, cancel it. Hold it. My bad. Highlight, delete. Recycle bin, empty recycle bin. Get rid of it. Because this is powerful. When my human self thinks I'm kind of, messed up and kind of lacking in looks or vibes or health, when my human self believes that, that's not good, is it? But wait. Because if your soul starts to believe it, you're really up creek. It's one thing for my human self to think I'm flawed. Get your soul convinced and you are up creek. Because you're taking that which was a divine spark that descended into the earth plane and can still be a very powerful divine spark, and you've given it the identity of humanness, mortality, limitation. And this is how most people live. So when you think you're having revelations and wow, insights and epiphanies on earth, part of what you're really doing is shifting from identifying with yourself as a mere human mortal to a soul. That's really what's happening. Unconsciously, you're shifting from like this experience here to this experience. And intellectually, we're going, wow, I'm having a great day. What you're having is a heart day and not just a human day. Once I have enough of this and my identity is clear enough that I am as God created me, then it starts overflowing into my humanness, and even my humanness reflects divinity. And that's the ultimate goal. The ego in us does not want that. So the ego wants you identifying not here or here, of course, at all, nor here, but with your humanness, and worse yet, your broken humanness, the limited human. So it just has to keep reminding us that we are lacking something. Lacking, really? Because I thought, but the Bible said, and I thought I was supposed to, and I'm one with God, and God loves me. Oh, and if God loves you, where's God? So the ego wants to use the human senses to keep us distracted into limiting beliefs about ourselves. When you take that on, limiting beliefs, then you start fantasizing compensatory stuff in your life. How you doing? I thought I was doing all right, but I guess I'm not. I probably should have made a different decision. Had I not gotten married to that person, and had I not gotten in that car with that person. And, lots of if, ands, and, all the ifs, ands, and buts and whatever. And instead, God's going, what are you talking about? Well, this is, and God's going to tell you. Haven't you been told that's all a fantasy? Thinking you're separate from me is the ultimate fantasy. You can't be separate from all that is. So now you're fantasizing within your fantasy that you're separate from God. And you're fantasizing that your fantasy of being separate is real and that you might be able to fantasize something to negotiate into your life to fix it. There's a shorter route. Stop fantasizing. Start knowing up here who you are. Now, but how do I do that? Oh, well, that's the rub for sure. Because my knowingness and what I affirm, I'm a holy child of God and all these great affirmations, and the humanness is like, oh, no. Oh, no. What are you doing? I'm holy, I'm loving, I'm made in God's image. The ego is going to totally shun that whole thing. The job for you and I is to know the truth but respect the illusion. To know I'm not a holy child of God because I said so. That's not what knowing is. What's that? It's called believing. Believing isn't knowing quite yet. Believing is I might believe it, I might not. Believing is I might know it, I might not. Knowing is I know. I'm totally locked in. I really am made in God's image. Now, if I only kind of believe it, you can still wear me down, can't you? You can still kind of pull me this way or that way. Beliefs are strong, far more than thinking. Beliefs are the root of our soul in here. Knowingness is our higher nature. So when you say affirmations, you don't go, I really believe there's hope, which is a great line. But what I just told you is I believe. Do you see the trick to that word? I believe means, but I might be wrong. When I say I know, leaves no room. It leaves no room at all. So knowingness is that third category. And this to me is really, really profound stuff because you guys may remember the story. Jesus, the fasting, 40 days, 40 nights, the desert. And then, he confronts this voice, the devil, ego, whatever you want to call it. And this voice confronts him. Oh, I see. Wow, look at you. You're really into this whole, I know who I am. And the voice is interesting, uses interesting wording. Listen to this. If you really are the Son of God, I dare you. Turn these stones to bread. If you really are the Son of God, jump off this cliff and angels will catch you. If you really are the Son of God, let's go ahead. I'll give you the power of the world. But notice what the ego is saying. If you are. If, which means you might not be. When he asked Jesus, if you really are, he was trying to mess with his mind. He was trying to plant because you might not be. See the game? You and I start every day of our lives with the same question. Your ego isn't like, well, no, you've been going to Unity. You're probably not interested in lower self anymore. No. No matter who you are, Jesus, Hitler, anybody, your ego, it's the same when you start your day. If you really are a holy child of God, let's see how you handle looking in the mirror today. Oh, another wrinkle. Oh, see? I knew it. You're not really a holy child of God, are you? It caught you. It proved to you. It said if, and it won. Because it showed you another gray hair or, a phone message from somebody. Oh, my God, you're kidding them? Why would they be calling me? All that stuff. All it is if you're really the child of God, you'll be able to handle this. But the odds are you won't because you're not. And there's, the identity crisis. We can go to Unity. We can read spiritual inspirational books and learn, oh, look, in this reading, I am a holy child of God. Saying it is one thing. But if you really are, prove it. And the ego will always win this argument because it's going to say if you're really a holy child of God, the fact that it already planted a maybe to it, you can't win that question. You and I have to answer the question. Because every day, when you're asked if you are, whatever the variable in the if is, how much I lean towards this side of the if or that side of the if, here's what's going to happen. The ego, or even if you want to say the universe, asks you every day, whether it's the ego or God, the universe, every day you are asked, who are you? You either know or you have variables of believing, wishing, hoping, right? How much does a person really always know? So what happens is, as soon as you are asked, and I swear to you, you are asked every second of every day, but I'm being light about it and saying, let's just say you start the day like this. Who are you? And your answer is going to determine how your life's going to go. Not God's going to determine, because God's already, I know who you are. That's why I have a life for you. If you would just peel the layers off of what you make, you would see, oh my God, oneness with God, complete joy, happy. Wow, perfect. But we don't answer the question the way God does, which is saying, I have my will, not God's will. And we're supposed to be saying, thy will, not mine. Partly meaning, I have an answer to the question that's different from yours. Let God's will be done hugely means let God's knowingness be mine. So, who are you? The universe says. Oh, good morning. Top of the morning to you. And who might you be? And your answers are unconscious, almost never conscious. So what happens is, who are you? And you go, I don't know. Let me check. You know, and you open your soul and you look and you go, oh, God. Well, I am formerly abused. I'm a single mom. And you have all these identifications, none of which are accurate. They're masks that you put on or you allowed others to put on you. They're never accurate. I don't care even if you read your Akashic records, because that's a pure, accurate record of all your experiences. But they're only your experiences in the world of fantasy. So even it doesn't tell you ultimately who you are. That's why Jesus, in the diary notes with Helen, who received A Course in Miracles, why he told Helen, he said, Casey kind of missed one thing. When Casey was asked to do a reading on someone, he would allow the person to ask the question. Should have asked God. God, give us a reading on this person. They are my holy child in whom I am well pleased. Instead, tell us about this person. Casey would read the readings, the Akashic records, which is extraordinary, extraordinarily accurate. It's extraordinary that he could even do it, and it speaks to how evolved Edgar Casey was. But he still only read the records of existence in this world, which doesn't exist. It's a hologram. So you're only reading holographic records of what would have been if you were here and you're not. What might have been if you're a wounded person and you're not. You see? So that might be a little out there for some, but hey, you know, so Edgar Casey would start readings and say things like, we find the entity, or sometimes he would say, yes, we have the body. You see? He's not reading your spirit. He's reading your soul. There's a difference. Your spirit is one with God and it's perfect and it has no human experience. Your soul is the one that thinks it has had experiences that you can tell about, read about. Oh, in this incarnation you lived here and there. And you respect that because that's what we believe in for now. I'm not saying all this is inaccurate. We respect the illusion. So I respect it. I feel like I was in this lifetime. I feel like I did this mistake and now I make up for it and change my behaviors and beliefs. All that's true for now, lowercase t, for now. So Casey was dead on, man, and amazing. But still, yes, we have the entity, or yes, we have the body. He's reading of your records of what you've done since you've been here. So he would start off with something like, and if the entity would rub such and such on their knee, it would help this. And if they would practice this, it would help that. He was still answering questions with answers of this world. Often he would end the readings by going, but doesn't really matter because deep inside there is a wholeness and perfection that can't be sick. So what Jesus says in the diary notes from A Course in Miracles is he should have done the reading the other way around. Started off with, this is an illusion, you can't be sick. But since you think you are, rub something on it. You see the difference? Just putting the priorities on this world rather than reality world shows that Casey was one notch away from total knowingness. He was reading this level, not this level. I mean, don't get me wrong, even Jesus says, my telling you this about Casey's missing this, he says, don't let that come across like I do not appreciate what he did. Because he was, wow. I mean, just devoted to God in ways that most people would never know and gifted in ways that most people would never know. So we're not understating, or undermining his things he should be credited for. The point simply that knowingness is knowingness. When I say, help me to see someone as you see them, God, that means not, help me to see the past lives where I once knew them. Do I owe them something? Do they owe me? Why do they annoy me? It must be like in Atlantis. I probably put them on a ship that sank, under the ocean when Atlanta, and maybe I said, all aboard, and they sank, and my ship flew, They went by land, which didn't work because land sank, and I flew. I was like, what? No, I'm good. So I owe them. Is that what happened? You see? But that's still of the world of debt and karma. The knowingness of God would be like, oh my God. And it wouldn't become an awareness of who and what details of a person. When you say, God, help me see them as you see them, what happens is all your senses disappear and there's a knowingness, because you've asked for it, there's a knowingness that suddenly is love. Like when people pass away, they often say, I went to the other side, and there was this sense of oneness with everyone. There wasn't like, I got to the other side, you should see it. It was like a spiritual Studio 52 or 54 or whatever that was in the 70s. Wow, I went to the other side and it was like, wow, some people are even hotter than they were on earth. Wow, nice pair of wings. Woo! That's not what happens. Yeah, right? All fluffy. Wow. Are those real? So, whatever. Is that what you think it's like on the other side? Really? It's not what they describe. The details are not there. You don't hear somebody, wow, in the cheekbones. It never happens. People talk about a feeling, not a thing. And the feeling is unquestionable. I don't know how to explain it. It was like, I felt like there was love between everyone and everything. There was this presence. And that's the good stuff. That's the real deal. That's what knowingness is like. But every day, you and I are asked this same question. Good morning. Who are you? That's the only question they have to ask. Why? Because everything that will come after that will come from your answer. Some people, they think in terms of, okay, I got to sit down and visualize this and this in my life, which is good to do. It is good to do. But if you visualize, I want good health, I want good wealth, but you're answering the question, who are you, out of a place of lack, and, I'm kind of broken, but I would like a better life, you're fantasizing. If you want to co-create, you can't answer negatively about who you are and expect positive outcomes. And people are shocked all the time about this. They unconsciously answer, even if you say, I don't know, like I'm insecure about my answer, doubting who you are, let alone pure and simple negative answers. Well, I'm broken, I'm struggling, I'm a starving artist, or I'm a balding such and such, and whatever your stuff is. And if you don't know what you are thinking unconsciously, just watch commercials. And they'll tell you what you're unconsciously thinking. Do you have limbs? That could be a disease. Some of these commercials. That could be a problem and you didn't know. I knew it. I suspected that having limbs might be a dysfunction. And then you have to take something for it. And then poof, and then limb. And then there's another commercial. Are you limbless? Well, yes, because you told me to take something because having limbs was a disease. I mean, this is how twisted it all is. But it's not just the overt negatives. I'm saying even a hesitation about the positives is something that makes a command to the universe. Order up. We've got somebody who's uncertain about who they are and their value, creative value, personal self-esteem. And the universe goes, and so it is. And in it comes. And people are like, oh, I can't believe my life. I got this and that and the other. It can't come from my opinions about you. Your life is nothing but the manifestation of your answer. Who are you? You and I have to start getting used to saying, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. Meaning, it's not I don't know emptiness. It's I don't know, but I'm going to allow God. One of those game shows. Could I do my call now? Reach out and ask God. Because it's foolproof. When you say, I kind of think I'm this, and I'm not this. I don't know, I'm just going to ask God. There's nothing that the ego or any other power, seeming power, real power in the universe can do other than part, like the sea for Moses. When you say, let's ask God, and then to the promised land you can go. Because you left the answer open for God's opinion. That act of humility, and I like those words personally, especially having done a lot of work with people in healing some of the most atrocious traumas in this world. One of the things I noticed in all my years asking them to repeat is this concept of, where am I going to go now? Like, my life's always been messed up. Now that I'm going to get a divorce, or now that somebody left me, where am I going to go? And I got them used to repeating, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. Because that means, I don't know, but I'm open to you, God. Not open to whatever. I'm open to the answer from God. That's all we have to do. And people have made God an old-fashioned terminology, a strange, a negative connotation on this thing called God. And there's people that'll try it on you and say, like that voice to Jesus, if you're the Son of God, guys, that's the same as, your own voice or people outside of you saying, well, if you're so spiritual, how come you've been married 3 times? Just say, get behind me, Satan. Honestly, really? Why does that bother you? You thought it was 3. I was married 13 times. Why does it bother you? Why is that an issue? In fact, I'm still married to all 13 of them. Why does that bother you? Why does that bother you? Why don't you talk about you? Why here? See, that voice, if you're so holy, then why? And this is not just them being inappropriate, which they are. They're also mirroring your doubts, which is why Jesus said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. What he was saying was, oh, good one. You snuck in under the radar, didn't you? You became my friend who's, putting this negative garbage on me. And no, I won't have it. Get out of the way. I mean, that's what you and I have to learn to do. I know that it's hurtful what people say and do to us. But our job is to have let them know we're not interested in their opinion. Well, how come you didn't put that vibe out there? What did I say or do that made you think that I needed to hear that from you? Because I'll just make a quick micro adjustment and let you know, get out of here. You're allowed to do that. My doubts, and we've had them for lifetimes. We've had them for lifetimes. And you have to be courageous to see these things. When I was teaching, I've been teaching forever. Lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. But in this lifetime, I was teaching at 20. And, I looked very young. I mean, when I'm 20, I looked 15. Now that I'm 100, I probably look 60. But anyway, moisturize. No, it doesn't work. So I was 20 and 20, teaching at major centers. They're some of the biggest in the world. And they invite me because they go, well, this guy has the great reputation. And people are writing letters. You got to get this guy. So they get me. And I show up and they're like, what are you, like my grandson? How could you know anything? Now, part of me can go, you rude people. But they were mirroring. Is it okay for me to teach at 20? Do I know anything? And you all have this too. Who am I to give advice to my friend about marriage? I've been married 5 times. You do have the right. You have experience they don't have. Answer the question. Who are you? If you're so, what? Wise, how come you look 20? So, here I am. I look like Chachi, from Happy Days. I'm just this kind of, young looking, and my hair, kind of, and I look like Chachi's trying to do a lecture on auras. And who's going to take that seriously? I had to, and I loved doing this. I made an adjustment in my mind. I see it. They're reflecting it as a challenge to me, as a test, and I have an answer. Just listen. To the audience, I could think that. Just listen and you'll find out. Boom! Just get in the zone, and they're suddenly focused on wow, rather than Now, why didn't they do that in the first place? Oh, I don't know. That's their thing. Why didn't you get them there in the first place? Let them know there's something about you. You do know. And it's the same with dating and, well, I didn't know if you wanted to do this on our date or that. Why aren't you clearer in everything? Oh, my God. And kids, like people do this whole, aren't children just wonderful, angelic beings? It depends. If you know who you are, they'll reflect beautiful, angelic little souls. Any doubts you have, it's not going to be, the children, they walked in and, Mother, we just, namaste, Mom, we're honoring who you are. Can we support you in any way today, Mom? The music's different. It's, the music's very different. When they act that way, though, they're sensing you don't know who you are. Be the lion tamer who doesn't know who he is and go in the cage. That darn lion. No. Why did you go in there? Well, I had a whip. The lion thought that was your tail. That's all. It just went, oh, look, meat. And it just thought that was your tail. You didn't show up. That was on you. But please don't think that I'm wronging or shaming us for it. This is what we do. Our job is to say, you know what? I see it. So my question to you as we close, how much are you in the fantasy? How much in the imagination and how much in the knowing? And what proportions? I'm not going to tell you one's right or wrong or good or bad. I'm just going to say to you, you should find that out. How much, because the fantasy's coming from, I am not, so I'm going to compensate by fantasizing that I am. Really? If that's the definition, how much do you want to live in that world? I don't need to shame it. I just decide, how much do I want to be there? Because the more I live there, the more it's affirming, I don't know. I don't know, but if I fantasize, wow, look at me. I'm successful. None of it's happening. Because it's coming from emptiness. If you want to change it, plug into knowingness, image it so, and manifest it all the way down to the lower chakras. Lower just simply being vertically speaking, right? Not bad. So that's what we do. Oh my God, I get it. I'm going to stop wasting. And we all do some amount of fantasizing. We all do some amount of, wow, like, wouldn't this be cool? So one thing you want to learn to do is ask yourself, so that you can know what's behind your drinking, your fantasizing of any kind. My ultimate relationship, I can't wait till I find my soulmate, and so on. All of those. There's an important shortcut. What is the ultimate feeling I would hope any of those things would give me? Try it. What is the ultimate feeling that I would hope that having some drinks today are going to give me? What is the ultimate feeling that I think a partner, a soulmate's going to give me. Because whatever the answer is, it means you've already affirmed you don't have that. If I had a soulmate, they would be so agreeable all the time. All the time. They wouldn't even have to brush their teeth because their breath would always be wonderful and ding, little chiclets, ding. Everything's just going to be peachy. It's going to be just wonderful. And God, it's like, that's a hope. Why? Because, I don't want somebody bringing up that the fantasy's really covering up something. So think about that. What's the ultimate feeling? Well, a soulmate would make me feel loved, thus affirming I'm not already. They would make me feel lovable. My parents always said, you're a jerk. You're not lovable at all. That's why we never breastfed you. We didn't want you that close to us. Wow. Like, wow. That's why we got a van so you could sit in the back. We didn't want you sitting too close to us. Whoa, like hurt. But my job is to get over what they made me feel like. All that meant was that's how screwed up they were. Why did I take it on as my reality? So all of a sudden it's like, wow, it's not true for me. And we think that what people program is all powerful. It isn't. It's part of the fantasy world because that's where their wounds and their fantasies started getting projected on me. But it's still the fantasy world. I want the real world. Where's the knowingness? So I'm being told, search inside. If they would have been different. So what if your family would have been different instead of like the one I just described? What if? What would you have ultimately felt? Loved. Then that's what you want. Where are you going to get that from? The fantasy or the knowing? I'm going to go to the knowing that I am loved. But I have doubts. I know, honey. I know. And some of those doubts come from the hurts. Some of them also came from your accumulated beliefs about yourself. Before you met your family, you came in. It's why you ended up with them. There was this catalog. And the catalog isn't where you just get to select the family you think you want. You get the one you need. And when you got the catalog, before they hand you the catalog of families that you can choose for this lifetime, what did they say? Who are you? I don't know. Not real lovable. We have just the catalog for you. Here's a family. There's one family that won't love you in Tulsa. There's a family, look. There's another family who won't like you in Tampa Bay. That's what it does. That's exactly what happens. Isn't this weird? I don't know, man. Isn't this trippy? Like, seriously? Yeah, you played a part. Does that mean you showed up in the unincarnated line, waiting for your next incarnation and said, hi, could I have a non-loving family? No, you didn't consciously say it. All you had to say was an answer to them. Who are you? And if you would have said, I am as God created me. These angels would have been like, wow. It would have been like Sanford. Fred said, this is a big one, Elizabeth. I'm coming to join you, honey. What? Gather around, everybody. And all these beings would, what's going on? All these angels. I asked them, the question. Yeah, well, we always ask them. Yeah, but this one said, I am as God created me. Wait a minute, you're kidding. That's what happens. Now, does that mean you go into perfect environment? Not necessarily. But what do you determine as perfect? With your eyes? Jesus went into a hay trough. But he was with the Divine Mother. And he was fine. Jesus was protected. There were dangers, and they were told, guided, move, go to a different town. So, just because you don't see externals that are perfect doesn't mean you answered poorly. You can say, I am as God created me, and still you have some lessons maybe still, and you have some lessons we need to learn still. But don't judge by your eyes how you've answered the question. You can use a little bit of the eyes to say, wow, yeah, my life has fallen apart today. I might have forgotten who I was, because that's often behind it. But often, those tests and lessons are often about affirming who you are because of how you handle the test. Even if I created out of a not knowing who I am, a really crappy day, if I pass my test, I've answered differently. I said this morning I wasn't sure. Now I know. And that's how we're supposed to answer. Always I know. Whether I got the I know in there preemptively or as a response to not doing it right the first time when I started the day, everything went bad. Bring it in now. Come back to the I know as soon as possible. Please take a few centering breaths. Tune in. Reflect. What did I hear today? How can it help me? Does any of it feel right or serve me? And if so, how can I take that into my life and make a difference? Make it practical and applicable. Yes, I'm glad we laughed together. There were lots of insights, perhaps. There might be things, I didn't agree with this piece or that. Let it go. Just let it drop, let it go. What did you hear that does make sense? Own it as yours. It's not copyrighted, trademarked. It's God, and it's yours as soon as you accept it. What you didn't like or hearing or whatever, drop it. Reflecting. Everything is mirroring who I believe I am. When I met someone and it was a relationship that kind of went poorly, let's say, when I met that person, there was an unconscious question from their soul to mine. Who are you? And when I answered, needy, broken, love, not loved, connected to God, not connected, whatever. I downloaded my answers and then it determined that relationship or not. If I think I'm valueless, I might attract a person who's hyper about their value. They're over intense. So I thought they're going to help me compensate for my lack. No. I'm going to start answering, I am as God created me. When I get a job, that's what I want to do. I want to get hired based on a knowingness of who I am. If I leak otherwise, they're going to pick up on it and not value me. I am as God created me. How I handle everything. I won't write a book that's just so-so. I'll write a book that comes from I know. I am. When I parent, I won't parent from, I don't want my kids to not like me, so I'll always give them their way. No, parent from I know. You'll be far more valuable to raising children from a knowingness, even though it doesn't always suit their egos, than from I don't know, because that'll break them. It'll harm the children when they have a parent that is unknown. The last minute or so. Fantasy, imagination, knowing. Which one do you come from most often and what proportions? Try to be very clear and honest about it. Most of your thoughts, are they centering into God and doing the I know? Therefore I create, therefore I experience? That's great. Or is it a mixture of I try to know, but I often don't believe in it, and I experience yucky things, and I try to compensate with fantasies, wishing somebody would be in my life to make my life better. Wishing this, wishing. Look at it and just be honest about it. Whatever proportion whatever percentage you could own that there's a bit of fantasy that you exist in or experience, can you see and you decide that it doesn't help? That it doesn't bring you what you hope, wish, fantasize that it would bring you? See it? If you do see that, can you just objectively say, I don't think I'll be doing that much? Don't think I'll be needing that. Can you just casually kind of retire it? I'm not saying perfectly always, just can you own that's really of no value to me? I get it. In contrast, what about knowing? What does it feel like to imagine that, what if I know who I am? What kind of life would come from a person who is totally in their center and knows? Do you feel comfortable imagining to step into that and own that as your reality? Many of us would say yes, and some of us would say it might be a little too intimidating. To be in knowingness all the time? Wow, that's just abstract to me. That's fine, own that. And then give that to God. Hey God, I'm imagining in this knowingness, it's a little intimidating, but I'm going to give that intimidation, fear to you, and I'm asking you to teach me how to own it. Like, create a bigger vessel for more fuel here. I'm willing to do this. In this knowing, and from this knowing, I'm going to start imaging in, imagining, imaging in. I'm going to hold an image of what I know to be true. That's co-creation. If I don't plug in my imaging of my heart to God above, it's not imaging, it's fantasizing again. You can dress it up and make it look prettier, thinking it's imaging, it's not. If it's not done with God, then you're holding a negative image that comes from the ego. So, I get it. Image of God is that I am holy. I know on earth I've made mistakes, but it doesn't affect the core of who I am. I am part of God, and I am very holy. I am innocent, even despite the lack of apparent innocence in my day-to-day life. That's the fantasy world. In the core of who I am innocent, flawless, whole, one with all that is. Truly I am. Sometimes I forget. And when I forget, it manifests. And when it manifests, I go into pain and I blame and I go and hurt and react. But I get it now. When I have that happen, I'll say, oops, go back, realign with God, you show me. And then practice imaging in that which God's showing you. Not just of yourself, but of others too. Whole people, whole beings that are beyond gender, race, and all that, just light beings. And I seek to know, not by human senses, I seek to know who everyone really is. And that helps me hold a vision of the I am for them, and they can step into it more likely. And so it is. All right, thank you. Stretch out just for a moment. And you know how I often say it's not stretch out, it's really stretch in. Meaning, take what you've experienced and pack it in as you're stretching. Don't stretch it out, stretch it like, yes, into. I want every fiber of my body and being to get what I just picked up here. Right? Soak it in. Good stuff, yes? Yeah, nice. Good, good, good. This is just great. You know, every time we're doing this, I just, it's like feeling like I'm ascending. That's how it feels. Like, wow, guys, I know I still got to get fuel in the car later and all that, but it's so weird because I don't care. I just, I just feel like, in this ascension process, it's what it feels like. These sharings, these talks, these healings, and still there's, people on this planet that aren't feeling like they're ascending. And that aggravates them, so they, like the lady who was complaining about Michael believes in fairies. It's like, wow. I wonder if she's ascending. I don't think so. It doesn't have that vibe, to start like, you believe in fairies, you're an idiot. Really? Does that sound expansive and loving? No. So I know people are in pain. And some of them are cutting you off on the road because they think that getting somewhere sooner than you makes them whole. That's the fantasy. It's not going to work. Now, am I saying you roll down your window and say, hey, when you cut me off, that was an attempt to compensate for your lack of understanding that you really are everything you need to be, and there's nowhere to get faster. Do I think that'll go over? No, I really don't. I really don't think it's going to, win people over. You need to know it, and you need to then say, good one. You showed me that old thing. I forgive you, I forgive myself. In love we go. Right? They're just mirroring stuff. All right? Let's do our closing prayer. Please stand. Remember, register as soon as you can for next week's workshop. Sorry for the late notice, but our schedule is so full that it's the only week we could choose for me to do a workshop for the next several months. We've got wonderful things happening here, so God bless and thank you. We sent her into appreciation. We sent her into love. We sent her into, wow. I mean, honestly, I could be at spiritual center somewhere that might teach me less, and that's not okay for me. I'm grateful that this is where I go. I could also be doing things unrelated to spiritual centers, right? All kinds. I could be at a tailgating party for some sports event. I'm grateful that this is what I do on my Sundays. That Sundays become a sacred Sunday experience. And it feeds me to go through 6 more days on planet Earth. I just feel grateful. This is the voice of our souls. I get it. I get it. So many things, and I can still go out and do things today. But I'm grateful that this is a choice that I make. It tells me that I'm getting it, and I'm heading home. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love of God. The power of God protects us. We are the power of God. And the presence of God watches over us. We are the presence of God. Truly, truly. Wherever we go, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Nicely done, guys. God bless. We'll see you.